Steven Wyn is a full-time pharmacist, owns 52 units of real estate, has a net worth of over $6 million by his mid-30s. This is way different from my channel. I'm so pumped that he drove down out to us to do this in person. And before you do anything, you need to go subscribe to Steven's YouTube channel, because genuinely, actually, you're my favorite new subscription of 2025. And I mean that from a place of I watch a lot of YouTube, Bitcoin content, and real estate content. And truly, I feel like you're right at that level where the information is super, super valuable to specific people without you being the guru, unattainable, brand that's different now, new category. And I think that's genuinely interesting. If I was to categorize myself and reflect on myself, I feel like I'm right there as well. I'm not flooded by so much inbound of attention that I can genuinely kind of give people a perspective on a non-cheesy, non-guru take on Bitcoin and crypto. And so I've done the real estate thing, and I've been binging your channel. And so, dude, I appreciate you coming down today.
Yeah, no, excited to share my journey, and that's great feedback.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No, so start off on that. In your description, you have the in 2015, I was here. Now in 2025, I'm here. Walk us through those years of just who you are and what happened over those years.
Yeah, so I graduated pharmacy school back in 2013, and I graduated with $250,000 of student debt. And interest rates for student debt was about 7 to 8%. And keep in mind, mortgages at that time were 4%. So to me, I graduated with a 6-figure salary with $250K student debt, and my first thought was holy cow, how do I manage all this?
Yeah.
So I spent the first 4 years from 2013 to 2017 just focusing on paying off my student debt. And I did that in about 4 years.
Yeah.
So I averaged about $80,000 towards, or actually $60,000 towards student debt for 4 years. Because that's all my parents taught me. My parents don't do real estate. No one in my family does real estate. They actually don't like real estate because they saw a lot of friends' family get wiped out in real estate in 2000, 2008. So they actually were very conservative against it. So all I knew was paying off student debt. And then in 2017, I paid off my student debt, and I was like, well, what's next? So the next natural organic step was to move out. I was living at home to save money, to allocate that rent or what rent I would have paid towards student loans. So I just said, what's next? So I just saved up for a house. So I bought my first house in 2017 in Livermore, California for $800,000. I put 10% down, which was $80,000, and it was a 4-bedroom house, 2,300 square feet, and I actually house hacked it. So I lived in the master bedroom, and I rented the 3 other bedrooms for $1,000 each, which was $3,000 total, and that covered my mortgage. So all I had to do was pay for property tax, insurance, HOA, utilities. So it really lowered my cost of living significantly. At the time, I was 27 years old, so I didn't mind having roommates still. Fast forward to today, I probably wouldn't want to do that now that I'm married and planning for family in the future. But I just started off house hacking, and once again, I got income. I was able to save money again, and I bought my second house hack in 2019 in San Francisco. I repeated that in 2021, bought another house hack in 2021, which is when I actually relocated to Southern California from Northern California. And at that point, started dating my current wife, Christine, and I wanted more privacy. So for me, I was like, well, how can I buy a piece of real estate that cash flows a little bit better? Because in California, as you all know, it's expensive, especially in today's interest rates. If you buy something today with 10% down, you're not going to cash flow, especially if you rent it out. So I wanted to go out of state, and that's when I dived into Huntsville, Alabama, where I bought a single family home. In 2021, what happened? COVID happened. Interest rates dropped, and then the value of all my single family homes skyrocketed by $500,000 each.
Yep.
Times 3 or 4 properties. So what I did was I did a huge cash out refinance in 2021. I pulled out about $1 million tax free, but now my single family home portfolio is cash flow negative. So my goal was to take that $1 million, dump it into a bunch of multifamily, which ended up becoming a 26 unit, a 20 unit, and a mobile home park, and hoping to use that to basically retire from my W-2. So fast forward to today, so that happened in 2021, 2022. 23 was spent stabilizing my portfolio. So renovating my 26 unit, renovating my 20 unit, I ended up selling my mobile home park for a loss. We'll talk about that later, but I lost $100,000 on that deal. So, you win some, you lose some, and as long as you learn. And in 2024, it's really just been stabilizing my portfolio, kind of focusing on my personal life, focus on, getting married, job, location, relocating to my current house. But yeah, today owned about 52 units of real estate. As I mentioned earlier, kind of net worth around $6 million. Mostly 80% is real estate, 20% is stocks.
Yeah.
And cash flow probably on average about 8 to 10K a month, assuming no major capex, but still work a full-time W-2 despite all that.
One thing I love doing is rearranging the apps on my home screen. You spend so much time just staring at your screen that I have one row for kind of each initiative in my life. And one app that is a staple on my home screen is today's sponsor, Aura. And I want to tell you about them. Aura is honestly a Swiss Army knife of having your financial and digital information in order, okay? This is what you get when you combine identity theft monitoring, password management, and a VPN and credit score monitoring. And on the identity theft protection, I know that sounds just such like a boomer term, but they get your data removed from the data broker's site and they back it up with $5 million of identity theft protection insurance, okay? On the VPN front, you get over 100 VPN locations. You're probably already paying for a VPN subscription that does that anyway. So you might as well combine it with the Aura app and get all of that wrapped into one. Seriously, go pro with Aura, get the backing of this app. Get your information proactively delisted from these data broker sites. It's a staple of my home screen. Make it a staple of yours too. Click the link in my description. Go to aura.com/Brian for 14 days free. aura.com/Brian for 14 days free. Yep. Okay, this is perfect. Let's hit the mindset stuff first of each phase and then specifics about commercial, specifics about real estate versus stocks, and we'll confront you about your very lack of Bitcoin for the audience. Okay, your mindset on your mindset of pay all the debt down first, and your mindset of how you related to money from your parents and from growing up. Expand on that part.
Yeah, so like I said, all I knew growing up was debt was bad.
Mm-hmm.
So, whether that was a mortgage debt, credit card debt, car loans, student loans, just all debt was bad. The American dream, my parents immigrated here from Vietnam, like they just wanted to own a house and then you pay off that house and that's it.
Yeah.
Like you're set for the rest of your life. You don't have to worry about anything. So I kind of just took that mentality because that's all I knew.
Yeah.
And it was a big weight on my shoulders to have 250K student debt. Like you could buy houses for that price in some states. So for me, that's all I was focused on. Just do my job, focus on increasing my income, keeping my expenses exactly the same. I live like a poor college student for at least 5 to 7 years post-college, believe it or not, or post-pharmacy school. And I just saved that margin to just pay off my student debt as fast as possible.
And you were buying stocks or anything else at the time?
All I did
really
was
everything.
401k, like just max out my 401k through work. I'd max out my IRA. Other than that, it was just the rest went to student loans after my emergency.
Yeah. Fund. And did you have this path and vision? Like, was it beginning to play in your head of like doing the house hack once you were done, or kind of moving to the next phase? Like, was that motivating you that you were gonna run this real estate track?
Honestly, I just was so focused on paying off my student debt. I didn't even think about real estate. It didn't even come to my mind the moment I paid it off. I just remember sitting there one day thinking, well, what's next? And the most logical thing is getting a house.
Yeah.
Because that's the next thing I would need.
Why did you believe that? Like from content or your parents or what?
I don't think it was just some belief I had out the gate. And it just made sense to me logically. Like, okay, well, I worked hard and I've been working for a few years now.
You were motivated to move out of your parents' house?
Yeah, just motivated to move out of your parents' house. I mean, up to a certain age, it's acceptable. And once you start hitting that, closer to 30.
But was anyone in your life being like renting is better than owning at that time?
No, actually, my dad, I remember he was telling me, why don't you just live at home? Like, your life's easier. And, for me, I had the mindset that renting was a waste of money at the time.
Yeah.
So because of that, I was like, well, I want to pay myself. So that's what was motivating for me to buy a house. And I started running the numbers on the houses. Yeah. You can do the math, right? If you buy a house for $100,000, you put 10% down, your loan's $720K, and then interest rates are.
Where did you even learn that you could put 10% down? Like, was that from content or like what? Because not everyone knows that. Like, not everyone knows that you can put 5, 10, 3% down. Like, people don't know that.
Yeah, honestly, it was just talking to a couple of real estate agents. Like, I didn't really know either. I mean, my aunts were not realtors, but loan officers.
Yes.
So I just would talk to them and just say, hey,
perfect.
Like, how much down do I need for my education? And they're just like, well, you're a high-income W-2. You have a great debt-to-income ratio. Your credit score is great because you're paying off your student debt. So because of that, they're like, yeah, you can just do like 5-10% down as long as you can cover the payment.
How much did you start nerding out on, like, did you start calculating your own debt to income ratio, or did you just take their word for it that you had a good one?
Yeah, honestly, I just took the word for it, and you would submit your documents, right?
Yeah.
Like pay stubs, bank statements. So they would calculate it. So I didn't really think that hard. I didn't even know my credit score was that good either.
Yeah.
Like, I never even checked it until, I bought my first house.
What made you then choose the house hack option, and how did you find those people to rent the rooms?
Yeah, so actually in 2017, I didn't watch any content on YouTube about real estate. So I didn't know about Bigger Pockets, about these real estate YouTubers.
Yeah.
Literally in 2013, I was helping in our house that we lived in. We rented out one room in our house.
Okay.
That I would help my mom do because she wasn't good at computers. So we'd post ads on Craigslist, believe it or not, to rent out a room. So because I was like used to helping my parents with that, it was just very natural for me to do the same thing when I bought my first house. So I wanted as many bedrooms as possible. I wanted a 4 or 5 bedroom house. There's more bedrooms, more renters, more money. And then I posted on Craigslist, and then Facebook Marketplace was starting to take off around that time.
How did you, so then what happened for what'd you do with the first one when you bought the second house hack then? Or what motivated you to buy the second, to move on and do the second one?
Yeah, so actually, I actually got a job in San Francisco.
Okay.
So, I was living in Livermore. It was too long of a commute. So I just thought logically, well, I have an excuse now to do another 10% down property. So when I got the job near San Francisco, every weekend I just would go to open houses to check out the area. San Francisco, if you've never been there, it's very different, especially the housing market. So, just went every weekend and eventually found kind of like a makeshift duplex where I put 10% down on a house. I think I bought for 1.1 million. All these houses I bought initially were on the MLS, nothing special, nothing off market.
Were you using a buyer's agent?
My aunt represented me.
Right.
So she was able to kind of give
Was it like a hobby? What was your mindset on those weekends? Was it fun and interesting, or was it like not just whatever?
Honestly, I thought it was pretty fun.
Right.
Like I would go with like my parents, so it kind of just felt like kind of an outing with like my family.
Yeah.
And then just to check out the area, and I think I thought it was just fun to do it. I actually enjoyed it. It didn't feel like a drag or a chore for me.
Did you so then did the first house hack, did you continue to do rent by the room, or then did you put a long-term tenant?
A good question. So initially when I first moved out, 3 bedrooms were occupied, and I rented out the 4th by the room. But the problem with that is the moment the landlord is out of there, that's when the conflicts start happening. Because people always blame each other, right? Like, oh, I didn't mess up the kitchen. It's this tenant, and this you ask that tenant, and they'll point another tenant. So the rent by the room model, it's very popular right now. But honestly, I don't think it's scalable because you basically have to have a maid service come in every single month, baked in, so that no one argues with each other and make them split the cost of that maid. But the moment I left and rented by the room, I just said, forget it. I just want to rent it to a long-term tenant. It's the same tenant today. But when I rented it out, I was actually cash flow negative on that property, despite me self-managing it and just not factoring any like repairs.
Makes sense. Kind of want to jump ahead on okay, so we'll dive in on the, like, you're an expert on the commercial real estate stuff, the different kinds of offers. Want to talk about that, but you also on your channel you talk about like, I really relate with your videos about being like bored or like thinking about fulfillment. And I had this thing, you know how you're I think it's interesting that when people reach like financial freedom, this is kind of colored by like just YouTube and TikTok and Instagram all show us this, but these people almost become like philosophers and just put like, and you're not quite there yet of the like cheesy philosophy, but it's like when you do remove all of the normal day-to-day like rat race or treadmill or like whatever analogy you want to use, dude, there's a ton of blank space in your brain that you have to fill with something. And the questions of like, who are you and like what do you do are honestly like kind of big and loud. And also I think, and I'm projecting, but like when you're a high performer and you're used to getting external validation and getting very visible like gold stars and things like that, and then when you achieve like you've won the game, you've effectively won the game. But there isn't really like a gold star, and that's super weird, man. So expand on that.
Yeah, so once I didn't even realize I hit my net worth goal like of 6 million plus until like I literally opened up Personal Capital, which is now Empower, and I just punched in all the numbers, and I remember looking, I was like, oh wow, I didn't even realize I was like worth that much.
Yeah.
I kind of just knew tangentially because I owned enough real estate, but yeah, it was weird. Like, believe it or not, like after I bought my first apartment complex, after I bought the second and the third, like I feel exactly the same. And actually, I hit a point. I have a lot of videos talking about it where I kind of hit burnt out because I was really burnt out between my job. I was renovating a 26 unit, a 20 unit. My mobile park wasn't going that great. It actually kind of hit like a depression for a couple months. And I think during that time window, that's when I started documenting a lot of my journey as kind of therapy, but also kind of sharing what the grind looks like.
Right.
Because you would think like 5 years ago, if you were to tell me, hey, Steven, you're going to own 90 units of real estate, I'm going to think I must be on a yacht, in a mansion, have everything, extremely happy. But when I hit it, I just paused like, this wasn't what I thought it was. And I think people kind of over-romanticize what it really is. But the reality is, I mean, it's just you at the end of the day. And up to a certain point, like you said, you don't feel any happier. Like, I can literally buy another apartment complex. My quality of life will be exactly the same. My only big change in quality of life right now is if I were to sell, let's say, half my portfolio, pay off my primary residence, pay off a few houses, have a bunch of money that I dump that's more liquid, and at that point, I can just leave my W-2 job. But until I make that leap, I'm not really any happier if I were to buy more apartments.
Well, and you had a video about stress and about how stress is there at each level, that you feel different and kind of like pressure. And there's this whole thing of, like, is your W-2 actually what's creating pressure for you, or is it the real estate that's creating pressure, or like is it both? And like would leaving your W-2 even increase like any fulfillment?
Yeah, I thought that question. So it was actually interesting. So I actually enjoyed my W-2, but then during COVID, when I moved to SoCal, I got laid off as a pharmacist at a hospital. And you would think you would need hospital pharmacists during COVID, right? We're healthcare workers. And once I got laid off, I just remember thinking to myself, like, wow, I poured so much time, so much effort into being a pharmacist, moving up to pharmacy director, pharmacy manager at a pretty young age, relatively speaking. I kind of hit the pinnacle of pharmacy, and then I was just like, I did everything right in my mind. But literally, when layoffs come, they just throw darts at a board, and it happens to fall on you.
Yeah. Okay. I want to talk about that. And even when you go to work right now, it's interesting that people have expectations of us, but they have expectations of us based on their version of who we are, and in order, like, but you're not you're not that. Like, you actually don't need that. Like, you actually don't need, like, and I think that's interesting that so much of what we do and the pressure that we feel is just from the expectations of others. And that's not in like oh, screw them, like, wait, that's just in a very, like, it's very interesting that we do care what other people think about us. We do care, like, who most intrinsically motivated to like do something, even what you're saying, like, you liked your W-2, you liked contributing in that way, that was a part of your identity. Even right now, when you introduce your videos, you're like, I am a pharmacist, like, that's a part of your identity. Which is not bad. That's not bad. That's cool. I don't even know what the question is. It's just, I've been thinking a lot about identity, and I've been thinking a lot about this term of, I guess, side hustle. And you know how the internet makes like side hustle and your W-2 as these like alternate things, but like, no, like, life genuinely is like way more interesting when just all of it is fluid. Like, even today, like, this is a Saturday and we're doing this on a Saturday. But what even is a Saturday? Like, just, and that's, I think some people, when they do leaving your W-2, the tangible benefit of quote unquote leaving your W-2 is that every day then can't become the same. And then you just are able to like allocate your time and attention towards that highest impact thing. But what's interesting, and again, I kind of just like on a monologue, but like what's interesting is when you're inside a company, honestly, your ability to just focus on the highest impact thing for that company is actually better for the company.
Yeah.
But we all like shovel like kind of busy work at each other all the time, which is weird.
Yeah.
Like you can be an entrepreneur and have this mindset of the highest impact thing wherever you are, but then you do run into random dartboards where it's like, God, what on earth are you guys talking about that I can't contribute to your guys' mission here doing code? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, for context, like my identity was heavily pharmacist, right? But once I got laid off, it shattered my pharmacist identity, and I went the complete opposite, where I was buying a bunch of real estate to spite pharmacy.
Sure.
I tried a bunch of businesses. Ryan Panetta had was an e-commerce drop shipping store. I bought that, lost money just as fast as I bought it. I opened my own pharmacy with partners that ended up losing money on that because I bought my 2 apartments plus my mobile home park.
Yeah.
So I was so in a death march to retire by 35. I'm 35 right now.
Yeah.
Haven't hit my goal. But my identity was complete opposite. But once I got slapped by my mobile home park and slapped by my businesses that failed, it actually made me appreciate my W-2 more, because in business, if you perform or don't perform, you're paid accordingly. So I worked my butt off for 2 years just to lose $100,000 in a mobile home park in a lesson. W-2, you can do the bare minimum. I hate to say it, you can do the bare minimum W-2, just barely clock in, do enough to not get fired. You get a paycheck every 2 weeks. So actually, by doing real estate, I'm like, actually appreciate my W-2 more, ironically, because it's guaranteed income. So it actually made me enjoy my W-2 a bit more, and I took a lot of my skill sets in W-2. It translates over to real estate, because managing a hospital is a lot harder than managing a real estate portfolio. I'll be honest, you don't need to be as intelligent to manage your real estate compared to a hospital. It requires more specialized skills. So in my mind, I'm like, in the hospital, it's life or death. In real estate, for the most part, unless your house like burns down, it's not like life or death. So once you can have that mindset, it's not that bad. So now my mindset, it's kind of, my identity is kind of blended between like both a pharmacist and an entrepreneur. And it's kind of funny, my current job, like before I started my current job, I don't want to say where I work yet, but they actually found my YouTube channel. And when I first started, they would ask me about my real estate. And I actually keep it very low key about real estate at W-2, because people will say like, oh, you're rich, like why do you need to work? Because, this kind of projecting of jealousy. But to me, I see it the other way. Well, I don't need to work, but I'm still here. So I'm not motivated by money. I'm motivated to just want to help people. Definitely. And to prove myself too.
Yeah.
So that's why I do what I do. So it's a different like purpose and reason. But I will say though, in healthcare, it is very like stagnant. Like I kind of feel like I'm just doing the same thing at different hospitals over and over again. And there is a lot of like bureaucracy. They're not built to be efficient. They're not built to like make things better. So that's the part that kind of like frustrates me of W-2 is like, I'll give an opinion to make things better, but your boss may or may not receive it well, and it may end up pissing off your boss.
For sure.
So sometimes you kind of have to just bite your tongue, but if it was my own business, I just can say what I want to make it better and more efficient.
Definitely, which is weird. That's in conflict with your identity and track record as like someone who has shown that you understand how to like allocate resources effectively and like grow value.
Yeah.
Right, which is interesting. Okay, you brought up something of a question that I was going to ask you. All right, so we keep it low key at work, but what about just other people that you talk to? Do you actively try to convince people that like real estate is a path of financial freedom? Like, are you out there like in one-to-one conversation? Like when you guys go out on double dates, are you like trying to steer the conversation towards like, let me drop some knowledge on you?
So I used to more heavily when I was like first starting, like in 30 to like 32. But then I kind of got burned a few times at work, because like I said, people start to look at you differently once you own a bunch of real estate. They're like, oh, they have their eye on you. Oh, Steven's not trying because he's rich, he doesn't need to work. You get those type of comments, side comments. And I get it, it's coming from good intention. So like for me, I was shoving kind of content or information down people's throats with good intentions, because I wish someone told me. That was always my reason and purpose, but I realized it rubbed a lot of people wrong, because they're struggling to pay off their student loans, or maybe they spend too much money and they're in credit card debt, they're trying to pay off their student debt, and they're struggling to buy their house. So like I actually just stopped sharing it once I became like 32 to recently. That ties in when I started my YouTube channel, because I needed an outlet to get this stuff out of my system. And I want to post the content so the people who want to watch it will watch it, versus me just talking to a coworker at work who I may piss them off by talking about it. So actually, because of that, I actually don't really talk about much at work unless like someone directly asks me about it. I may answer here and there. But I'm way more transparent on like my YouTube channel than I am actually in person at my W2.
Super well framed. No, super well framed, and that makes sense. We like influencers and like content gets like just kind of shit on a lot, and just like from about just gurus and all that stuff. But what the flip side of that is influencers. It's never been easier to find someone who's like, there's very custom fit advice is what I'm trying to say. Like and that's what's interesting about you is that like transparently, like I'm like, you're right here and I'm like right here. And so it's way more interesting to listen to you even at however many followers than the person who's like at $100 million of real estate and is just like doing syndicates and this like all like, that's not, I don't like, okay, sweet, or like whatever.
Yeah.
Like awesome. Like, and so an example of this is, okay, truly an example of this is we made it past, like, okay, let's get into the commercial stuff and like what makes commercial different than residential. So for people that are out there, if you're not at residential yet, you honestly should research house hacking. Like you should click off this video and go watch a house hacking video if you don't own a house. Like that's what you should do. Secondly, if you have that first house, you should definitely keep it as a rental and then move on to the next one would be like my opinion. And so that whole thing of there, and I have videos about how doing that. But what I'm learning from you right now is how commercial real estate has forced depreciation. So you're no longer reliant on sales comps. That's different and interesting. And then the part about your 3 offer scenario. So talk about just why commercial is different than residential, and talk about how your like 3 offer.
Yeah, so with residential real estate, it's 1 to 4 units. So it could be a single family home, duplex, triplex, fourplex. They're all considered residential. The value of those properties is based on what your neighbor's house sells for. So if I own a single family home and my neighbor's single family home, if one rents for $1,000 a month and one rents for $10,000 a month, the value is exactly the same when you sell it.
Yeah.
With commercial real estate, that's 5+ units. The value is based on the net operating income divided by the market cap rate. It's just math.
Yep.
So net operating income is your gross rental income minus all your expenses, excluding debt service. That's your NOI, you divide by the cap rate. So take that same example. I have a 5-unit apartment complex that has an NOI of, let's say it makes $1,000 a month. My apartment next door, same units, makes $10,000 a month. The one that's $10,000 a month is worth 10x. So once I learned that, I was like, wow.
Where did you learn that?
I learned that from YouTube as well.
Okay, nice.
So, I joined a mentorship program. But once that thing clicked for me, that concept, I was like, wow. So it doesn't matter what my neighbor house sells for. I can have full control over my NOI to make it go up. And if you make it go up, the value goes up.
Yep. That made me think of another thing too. I also want to talk about how when you're buying commercial, your own DTI doesn't matter anymore. Tell me if that's true or false.
That's true. Okay. So when you buy commercial real estate, so 5+ units, they don't look at you personally. They look at that property first. They want to look at something called the debt service coverage ratio, so the DSCSR. And usually it has to be greater than 1.25. So what does that mean? So if your NOI, if your monthly loan payment is $1,000 a month, your monthly debt service payment must be 25% higher than that. Yeah. So it must be $1,250.
Right.
In order for the bank to want to lend on that property.
They do ask for a personal financial statement though, right? And so what does that mean?
So a personal financial statement is literally a net worth statement. So it's going to ask, okay, how much money do you make from your W-2 if you have a W-2? Like what's your rent or what's your mortgage? What assets do you own? What stocks do you own? Do you have life insurance? Do you have Bitcoin? Do you have cars?
Right.
Do you have gold? Whatever that is, it's just your whole net worth statement. And why they ask for that is because your net worth must be at least what the loan is. So if I'm getting $1 million loan for commercial real estate, I need $1 million net worth at least.
Who tells you that? Bridge lenders tell you that, or like banks tell you?
That's what the banks will tell you.
A bank. Yeah.
So you can ask the bank, and that's why they're asking for your personal financial statement. So like for me, I made a couple offers on a 50-unit apartment complex, and they want $2 million. So they asked for my personal financial statement, and they're just checking to make sure that my net worth was over that $2 million threshold. Right. So before I even sent it, I did tell them, oh, hey, my net worth is whatever, $6 million. Right. It's above the purchase price. So they knew that I'm a serious buyer. Right. They knew that I could take down the property. So that's all they're doing. They're just trying to look at and they also ask for a real estate schedule owned. So when you're in the commercial space, they don't care if you own 50 single family homes. It's a different business model to manage 50 single family homes versus an apartment complex.
Yeah.
Because those 56 single family homes, once again, the value is based on what the neighbor's house sells for, versus an apartment, the value is based on your NOI. So if you're a good operator and you can increase the NOI, the value goes up. If you're a bad operator, the NOI goes down, the value goes down. So it goes both ways.
Yeah.
Residential, it doesn't matter if you're what the rents are, it just follows the market.
Do you self-manage your single family home still?
Yeah, so I actually self-manage my single family homes, but all my apartments, I have property managers.
Are you the guy that just like takes Zelle and they like text you, or are you the guy that like set up a portal and they like use a portal for your single family homes?
Yeah, believe it or not, it's just Zelle.
You're just that guy?
Yeah, I'm the guy that they just Zelle to my business account through Chase.
And they'll text you for maintenance?
Yeah, they'll just text me for maintenance, and usually I just have a handyman that I can text, say, hey, can you go over there and triage the issue? So it's pretty passive, I would say.
What would you tell me? So both our single family homes, we both use a property manager right now, but I'm hitting that like 4-year mark of like, I'm having to like manage the managers, and I'm kind of like type A and don't like my wife and I are both project managers, and we kind of like are itching to kind of step in there. But I kind of want to do the like, get one of the SaaS software stuff and like set them up on an actual like portal and stuff. Any thoughts on that?
I haven't gone down that route, to be honest. Like for me, what kills you for single family home is turnover.
Yeah.
But luckily for me, I have the same tenants since I moved out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
So I moved out of my first house in 2019. It's still the same tenant. I moved out of my other house in 2020. It's the same tenant.
Do you raise the rents?
So every 2 years, I just raise it by about 200.
Yeah.
So what I do is I look at what the market rent is. So let's say it's 4,400, and my current rent is like maybe 3,900. I'll just raise it to maybe 4,000 to 4,100. So I try to be about 5 to 10% below market because I want them to stay there because they're good tenants.
Yeah.
Because it costs you the most money when you have turnover with single family homes because now it's vacant. You're gonna have to fix up the property, and it may be vacant 2-3 months before you can rent it out. So if you're renting $5,000 a month, you just lost $15K.
Yeah.
Plus the cost to renovate it, and plus it's more effort on my end because I have to, send my family over, for example, to show the property. I have to talk to tenants. I have to screen them.
Yep.
So for me, if it's a good tenant, I just want to keep them there, keep them happy. So that's why they just text me for any issues.
Yeah.
I'm usually pretty fast. Like I leverage Costco a lot. If like the fridge breaks, the stove breaks, or something, the washer and dryer break, I just send in a new one. They haul it. I say, what day are you available? They're there. Super easy. So I'm pretty responsive myself. So for me, it's just not worth it to pay them 10% or whatever percentage of my rent when I have a good tenant and it's pretty stable and I have a pretty good system. But I am kind of hitting the point, as I kind of alluded to, if I do want to retire, my single family homes are the ones on the chopping block.
Yep.
Because the rental income isn't that strong, but I have a lot of appreciation in those single family homes.
I'm gonna ask one question about ADU development, and then let's go to your 3 offer, like how you make commercial offers. Have you looked into like the ADU laws in California and how like you can, like they're really aggressive now. Like you can, if you use them to the max, you can split the parcel and do an ADU on both and like turn single family homes into 4plexes. Like, have you looked into that at all?
Yeah, so actually when I bought my house in Orange County, so I bought a property in Lake Forest, I think in 2021, and my intent was to actually live in it, and then I wanted a big backyard so I could build an ADU. But what turned me off from the ADU, at least back then, was financing for it. It was challenging. You basically had to like get a HELOC from another property, do a huge cash out refinance, and then use that to basically pay for it, quote unquote cash. So it's about $250,000-300K. But because I think at the time in 2020, it was a relatively new concept, there was no sales comps to back into it. So just because I put in $250K doesn't mean that improves the value of my property by $250K. But maybe now if you can subdivide it, maybe it's the juice is worth the squeeze. But that was my pivot point. So I decided not to build an ADU and decided to go buy apartments instead. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. And so off of that, so the 3 types of offers, what are those? How did you learn about them?
Yeah, so the traditional offer that I've done was just 25% down. So when you do commercial real estate, you have to do 25% down. It's usually amortizations 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, depending on which lender you use and how old the property is. There's not many lenders that give you 30-year fixed. There's only one lender that I used called Velocity Mortgage. They do give you 30-year fixed, but interest rate's going to be higher than your average. But on average, it's about 3-year term, 5-year, 7 or 10-year term. And then from there, interest rates are, at least today, they're about maybe 7, 7.5, depending on the lender. And if you use Velocity Mortgage, they're probably closer to 9 with that. So,
And it's 25% just even if you can hit the 1.25 DSCR at 10%,
Correct.
it just still, you can't do it.
Yes.
For them.
Yeah, so basically you have to do 25% down. They're usually not flexible with that. Velocity Mortgage, they do have a product where you can do 10% down. But like I said, it's a higher interest rate, but your cookie cutter, loan for commercial, it's 25% down, even if your debt service coverage ratio is greater than that 1.25.
Yeah.
So, they don't care. But let's just say that if you don't hit that debt service coverage ratio at 25% down, you have to put a larger down payment.
For sure.
So for me, I underwrite with 25% down always because I don't want to I want to leverage a little bit more.
Yeah.
On my deals.
Yeah. So then what about your other offers?
Yeah, so that's my first offer. So it's 25% down, and I calculate my debt service coverage ratio of 1.25. My second offer is if they have equity in the deal. So I call it the 50-40-10. So that means that the lender, Velocity Mortgage, puts 50% of the money in at 9% interest. The 40% is the seller carries second. And you have to negotiate a low interest rate on that. So I usually aim for 1%. And people will say, well, why would someone lend you at 1%? Why I ask for 1% is if I have 9 plus 1 is 10, my blended interest rate is 5%, which is lower than traditional interest rates that are 7.5% to 8%, just call it. So because of that, I can put a more aggressive offer and only do 10% down on the deal. And that's good for me because I want to put as little money down as possible.
Aggressive offer means the seller gets a higher price.
Yes.
Right.
So I'll give example of the 3 offers after. And then the last, but for that 50-40-10 to work, they have to have equity in the deal, at least 40% equity. The last offer is the property must be owned free and clear. And I want to put 10% down and ask the seller carry 90%.
Yeah.
So that only works if they own the property free and clear. So I'll give an example. I made an offer on I think it was like a 60-unit apartment complex. And they wanted $5 million. So I ran my numbers. So for, I think, ease, if I did traditional 25% down debt service coverage ratio, the offer is $3 million.
Yep.
If I did 50-40-10, so I put 10% down, did seller carry 40 at 1% interest because it was owned free and clear, my offer was $4 million. If they're willing to carry 90%, my offer is $5 million. So I usually present all 3 offers and let them pick.
Yep.
So it's up to them. I said, hey, if you want to become the bank, I'll give you what you want.
Yep.
But if you don't want to be the bank, you just want to be done and get your money and move on, well, I can only give you $3 million or $4 million, depending on what you're willing to do. So the 50-40-10 is powerful because they get 60% of the money. They're only carrying 40. So they're saving money on capital gains tax. And you're still getting a monthly income, albeit it may not be that much if you're only doing 1%.
Where'd you learn about that creative financing?
So creative financing, I learned through it just through like my mentorship, but also I bought my mobile home park. So actually 100% seller financing. So I put 10% down and they carried 90. And the 50-40-10, I actually learned that from another YouTube channel. When we're into our time.
Yeah.
I just saw it on there. It was actually featured on there for one episode. But yeah, once I learned about that product, it just kind of blew my mind because I was like, it's hard to sell people to carry 90% of the loan because they want their money. There's a reason why people are selling because they want to retire. They want to invest in a business. They want to just give it to their kids. But it's easy to sell, hey, I'll give you 60%, just carry me 40. So once I learned about that loan product, it allowed me to make more aggressive offers, I would say.
Hey, quick ad break here. Just want to let you know, we have a newsletter, Sharon and I do. It's at linktree.com/Brian and Sharon, where we go into kind of in-depth content about how to buy real estate with Bitcoin and how to do Bitcoin with your personal finances as a couple. And so if those 2 things are interesting to you, don't mind being on another newsletter, go to linktree.com/Brian and Sharon and join the newsletter.
That's more win-win.
So I want to talk about I want to talk about mentorship versus like just taking free info off of YouTube and like doing something with it. So genuinely, like I learned about that from your channel, and I tried to do like I just started texting brokers. Like I just started texting brokers and texting bridge lenders. And I texted a bridge lender. I was emailing a bridge lender and like talking to both of them. And then I presented the 50-40-10 to the bridge lender, who the bridge lender wrote back and said that if it appraised right, they would even be down to do it 60-40 with no money from me.
Oh, wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah, connect me with that bridge lender.
Yes, like that, and I was just like, that's crazy. So that was free information from YouTube, and then just like and again, this is like what everyone says to do. Of just like, if you can shrink the time from learning something new to like implementing it, like just go and do it, dude. And like so what has been your experience with just you've done programs, you're a coach like yourself. What do you think about that whole world? Because I still get very much hung up on kind of the meta analysis of all of that, but it's honestly kind of a distraction. Like I've used life coaches, I've used coaches before in the past. They've been super helpful to me. Like, so it's good.
Yeah, I think for me, my first mentorship that I joined, it's like $30,000 to join it.
Mm-hmm.
It is expensive,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, to your point, the information you can learn it for free online on YouTube. Like if you watch my whole channel, you'll
Mm-hmm.
probably learn my
Mm-hmm.
whole course.
Mm-hmm.
Being honest,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because the information doesn't really change. The only difference is when you go through the courses and the coaching, it's just more organized.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's more like step A, B, C, D.
Mm-hmm.
Versus if you watch my channel, it's a little bit all over the place.
Yep.
But if you watch enough of the videos, you start to get the flavor and the theme. But what you did was smart was you took action.
Mm-hmm.
So when I put $30,000 into a mentorship, it forced me to take action because
Yes.
I want to see a return on my investment. So it got me to talk to brokers. It got me to talk to lenders. It got me to do a direct mail campaign. It got me to talk to property managers.
Yeah.
Because every time you talk to a lender, a property manager, a broker, you should be learning every single time.
Yeah.
And I do that myself, right? That's why I love to talk to lenders. And the more lenders I talk to now, because lenders put most of the money in the deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
for me, now that I know about the 5410, I leverage it. Say, hey, well, Velocity Mortgage, they offer it. Do you guys offer something? And they're like, no, actually we don't.
Mm-hmm.
But you plant the seed in their mind.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it is possible. Like you found one where
Yeah.
you ever find a good enough deal,
Yeah.
you put zero money in the deal, essentially. So that's the relationships you want to build over time. But you only know that by just taking consistent action and asking the right questions. So that's how I've learned a lot, to be honest, is just asking questions.
Yeah.
And just come at it like, teach me. And you should be learning from these people.
I want to talk about construction, like renovation costs, and then I want to start talking about index funds and like stocks. Do you ever try to get the construction money like for a renovation, or do you do that out of your own reserves?
Yeah, so for my mobile home park in my 26 unit, I actually, when I did my cash out refinance, that $1 million I pulled out, I allocated a lot towards renovation. So my 26 unit, I'll just give you kind of a breakdown. I bought for $500,000. I put 25% down, but I actually got a seller credit of about $60,000 because the roof needed to be replaced.
Mm-hmm.
So it cut my down payment in half. So essentially I only put like about 12% down, to 12, 13%.
Do you fly out there to see them?
For the first time. So the first time I bought my 26 unit, I flew out to Oklahoma, and my mobile home park, I flew out to Alabama. And the first time I ever stepped in those states,
Mm-hmm.
I'm being honest.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I just kind of had the renovation cost allocated towards it already. So I already had the money up front. But with my 20 unit, I actually used kind of like a bridge lender where I had to front the renovation cost, but then they would inspect it and then reimburse me the money. But what I didn't like about the bridge lender was that if I put on my scope of work saying, okay, hey, I need to replace the flooring, it's going to cost me $10,000. If it only costs you $1,000, I'm being dramatic for the example,
Yeah.
they're only going to give you $1,000.
Yeah.
So like, even though your scope of work had 10,000, so they don't deviate from the scope of work.
Sure.
So I had a scope of work, and you know, when you're doing your scope of work, you don't know what you don't know.
For sure.
Once you start ripping out drywall and flooring, you see other issues.
Yeah.
So it might end up being more expensive or cheaper depending on what it is, but they have no flexibility. In my mind, I just thought, oh, I have $100,000 to renovate my apartments. I'm good.
Yeah.
But no, you have to like follow exactly the scope of work. So what ended up happening was I would submit for a lot of stuff and they wouldn't reimburse me back. So I ended up putting out a cost, but I ended up getting about like half of like, you know, I had $100,000 allocated for renovation.
Yeah.
They reimbursed me $50K and I put in the other $50K myself. So to me, I always want to have the renovation cost up front. You don't want to depend on any cash flow from property for renovation. If you do get cash flow, great, you can allocate, but don't bank on it. You have to have all the renovation fund up front because it always costs you more than you expect and to take you longer than you expect with renovations. And I renovated like 90 units.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to dig it more in on that part. Okay, let's talk about stocks, and let's talk about where do you. So you said your current net worth is 80% real estate, 20% stocks. How do you choose what stocks? Why stocks over crypto? How do you choose how much to not hold in real estate? How much do you also like? And also, what's your perspective on just cash also?
Yeah, so my net worth is like about $6 million. So 80% is real estate. That's the majority of my net worth. The 20% that I've left over, so about roughly like $1 million in stocks. About half is probably 401k. The other half is like, you know, brokerage and some whole life insurance that I max fund. And
where'd you learn about that?
Yeah, once again, one of my family members was like a life insurance agent.
Right.
And so obviously they're going to pitch you life insurance.
Yeah.
But I do have a couple of videos talking about it, but I think it's only for like high net worth individuals.
Well, yeah, you seem like the person who, from super generalizing, you are the person that whole life is positive for.
Yeah, like it's not the greatest investment, I would say, but it's just more for like protection and like, you know, you can get tax-free money.
Yeah.
And if something happens to you, I work in a hospital, so I see people die every day.
Yep.
You know, your family gets a nice lump sum tax-free. So I know it's not the greatest investment, but I've done my real estate, I've done my stocks already, I maxed everything out. That's after the fact.
Absolutely.
So that's why the life insurance agents, they always advertise it for like middle class people. For the 99% of the people, just buy term, you're good. But once you hit that 1%, then you can start dabbling in max funding whole life insurance.
Yep.
So I own 2 policies that I plan on max funding. It is quite a bit. Like I have a $1.5 million life insurance policy. I think max funding it on average is about maybe $300K over like maybe 7 years.
Yeah.
But you can do it over your life, but the fastest you can do is like $300K over 7 years. But you know, for me, I'm just continuing to max fund it. But once I step away from my W-2, I'm probably gonna lower my death benefit on my whole life insurance so that the cost of insurance goes down and my cash value is gonna be higher, so the fees go down. So you really have to do it correctly.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's not for everybody. Like, would I buy another policy? Probably not. Like, I have enough as is. But like I said, it was just a tool that I have in my tool belt because I hit a certain net worth.
Yeah. And then what about just like regular bank accounts? I don't know.
Yeah, so for cash, I don't know why, I try to keep around 100 to 150 just in my bank account.
Yeah.
I do have a bunch of line of credits as well on my stock portfolio.
Yeah.
So like I do use Charles Schwab, and they have a pledge asset line of credit where it used to give pretty low interest rates where you can borrow, like if let's say you have $100,000 of stocks, you can borrow 70% of it against that. So that's just more of an emergency fund. I had a personal line of credit from First Republic Bank, which went bankrupt, which is now under SoFi, but that was unsecured. So for me,
Where'd you learn about those? Is that just, again, you call people and ask questions?
I just would Google it, like, hey, where can I get line of credits? Because I didn't mention earlier, but I own 52 units, no partners.
Yeah.
I never raised money.
Yeah.
I never had partners. I've done it all myself, working a full-time W-2, and people have a hard time believing that. Because most people that you see on YouTube, like you said, they syndicate.
Yeah.
But they own like 1% of 10,000 doors. I own 100% of 52 units.
Yes.
And I personally prefer that because I just want to have control over my portfolio. But when you're a syndicator, you're at the mercy of the investor. So
it also just all your time now can go towards like, again, like learning the 3 types of offers and like texting brokers instead of like learning how to, because I've even been thinking about this myself of like, okay, say I'm like sending these out there, texting them, like I don't want to go then learning how to structure a syndicate and like deal with sending K1s and like that's so much bureaucracy and like other stuff that's not growing your net worth necessarily. Like
like most syndicators, what they do is they just get a bunch of units. They try to sell it to like an institutional buyer.
They also charge a fee.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Yeah.
So they charge an asset management fee of 1%, and also they charge a 3% acquisition fee, a 3% disposition fee.
Yeah.
So they're incentivized to sell and constantly buy real estate. So they're incentivized to deploy capital and basically buy bad deals potentially. That's why for me, I'm very skeptical. Like I had a lot of people who joined my mentorship. And I said, worst case, because a lot of people that join, they realize, I didn't realize it was this much work.
Yeah.
And they get scared out of multifamily. And I tell them, dude, you didn't waste money at all. Because if you were to buy your first apartment, you can lose way more than the cost of my course.
Yeah.
And worst case is, you know enough to vet a syndicator from my education. You know enough to vet a syndicator and what's a good deal.
Yeah.
So if you just learn that, that's better off. Like I said, I bought a mobile home park because I watched a bunch of podcasts about mobile home parks. Thought it was a cash cow. Thought it was amazing.
Yeah.
I lost $100,000 and I hated my life when
Yeah.
I bought that. I was unhappy with 90 units of real estate, ironically. And that was kind of my goal, was 90 units of real estate. So,
do you have, speaking of credit lines, do you have HELOCs on your single families?
not currently. It's hard to get HELOCs on investment properties.
Yeah.
But to that point, eventually when I do want to retire from my W-2, I'm probably going to sell one of my single family homes, take all the equity to pay off my primary, but I'm probably going to get a big...
That's where the fat HELOC is.
Yeah, I'm going to get my fat HELOC
right.
on my primary
right.
in case I find a quick deal that I want to deploy
right.
capital quickly on. So that's kind of my strategy.
Yep. Yeah. No, makes sense. Let's talk about Bitcoin. why? Yeah, let's wrap on Bitcoin. What's your thoughts on just Bitcoin and crypto, like over the years?
Yeah, so honestly, I don't know too much about it.
Yep.
I know during COVID, it was really popular. A lot of content creators were talking about it. Like I said, my stock portfolio, it's mostly index funds. Forgot to mention it. Just Vanguard, total stock market fund, total international fund, total bond market. And it's mostly total US stock market. And for some reason, I just bought a bunch of Apple stocks, like consistently over time. It's done well for at least the past few years. But for me, I just didn't really understand, I think, crypto and Bitcoin at the time. And I think for me, I try to stay focused because you can become rich doing anything. Like you just pick one thing and just do it for a long time, you'll be rich at that.
Totally.
So for me, I just thought index funds was super passive because I just set it and forget it. I automate it every single month, whatever, $1,000, and it gets allocated to my 3 index funds.
Yeah.
I don't think about it. Real estate, it requires more time, more energy, at least initially. Now at this point, I spend about maybe 2 hours a month managing my portfolio. I don't really do much unless there's an issue. But at this point, I've built the rapport about the trusted property management. So I just be like, yes, approved, or I might call them and ask them a question if it's like a bigger expense. So it's really passive now. But yeah, for me, anytime I deviated from like real estate, like I said, I made 80% of my net worth from real estate.
Yeah.
And honestly, you can just stay in single family homes. You can become very wealthy with single family homes. You can just do apartments, become wealthy from apartments.
Yeah.
So when I went to my mobile home park, I lost money.
Yeah.
So, and same with like stocks. Like stocks to me, it's just more passive. It's a little bit more liquid, minus 401k-ish. And to me, it was just very passive, but it takes a long time. Like for me, I want to retire early. So I'm 35. And my new goal now is about 40, which is probably more realistic. So I don't know. That's kind of was my thought process. I just went so into real estate. All my time, all my energy, all my focus went to real estate, and I've done well from real estate, so I didn't want to like deviate and lose that focus. Yeah.
Do you think at all? This is gonna feel like a random question, but I guess like, all right, you had one video on. I didn't click on it yet. It was like something like is being a landlord ethical or something like right? Okay, and I that sounds random, but part of my channel knows this that. Part of why I like Bitcoin so much is because there's like the personal finance aspect of it, but there's also the kind of like, there's this term like fix the money, fix the world. And there's a very philosophical element of it also. And just like the problems with central banking, the problems with fiat money. I don't know, this is a super heavy topic to like end on, but do you think about because you're so successful in personal finance, do you think about those like other heavier questions? You're a pretty like introspective guy. Like, have you ever heard that part of Bitcoin at all, of like how it's better than fiat money, or like have you thought about that at all? Not heard about it.
Yeah, I kind of heard like the purpose of Bitcoin is supposed to be like if the stock market crashes, it shouldn't crash with it. But I think they kind of do follow each other a little bit right now.
Yep.
So but I get it. It's kind of like the rebellious side of America. Like, hey, do something rebellious, and it's easy to hate on landlords because everyone pays rent at one point. I mean, I was a renter too. And I guess what people don't realize though is like, when rent goes up, or when property tax goes up, insurance goes up, the landlord covers that, so you have to just raise the rents accordingly just to break even.
Yes.
And what people don't realize, like in Oklahoma, I charge $500 a month in rent on average. Just if the fridge breaks, it costs $700. So I just lost that month's rent for just one refrigerator. So you're kind of playing a long-term hedge. And so most of the money's made in forced appreciation. Yes. So if you look at most of my net worth, it's from natural appreciation for single-family homes and my forced appreciation from commercial real estate. So my 26 unit, I bought it for $500,000, put in $300 of renovation, it's worth 1.6 today. Yeah. So I forced $800K of appreciation. Yeah. That's where most of my money is, but it's trapped. Yep. Unless I sell it.
And honestly, like I've noticed this about Bitcoin influencers, and this is even like why I brought it all the way to the end of the video, just that Bitcoin influencers, I gravitate super hard for a long time. I would gravitate super hard towards kind of the philosophical aspect. And it wasn't really like hey, like Bitcoin can help you get to financial freedom. Like honestly wasn't the thing for a while. And you're right. And the fact that the boiled down thing is like, oh, in a stock market crash, like it would be, that's where the whole like digital gold thing came from. And I honestly have been trying to do a better job of kind of coming from a more full circle approach of like, I actually think Bitcoin and real estate have a lot more on the same page than they don't, because interior square footage is a good store of value because the fiat money supply expands. And it's a good store of value because of all of the leverage stuff and all of the different types of loans that we talked about for the entire video, right? And it also has that like hook that it actually solves, like if the money itself was a good store of value, unlike dollars, like not being a good store of value, it almost like solves, it just solves so much in society that then people that all they have is their labor can just only hold money, and that money keeps pace with inflation rather than losing to inflation. And so I've been trying to do a better job of getting out there that like I actually think Bitcoin and real estate combined is like a really effective barbell that's like really good and like positive for the world. Is something I've just been like working on more.
Yeah, no, that's a good thought. I never really thought of, because even when the stock market's been crashing recently, like my real estate stays the same or it's even going up.
Yeah.
Despite interest rates, people thought when interest rates went up, housing prices would go down, but it just kind of stayed stagnant. But over the past I think 2 years, my net worth went up by $1 million. I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
I literally just held my real estate, had the same tenants, just sat back, relaxed, and just naturally just went up, and I didn't really do anything. So in terms of store of value, like I think I would agree. Like people use real estate to kind of preserve their wealth because it just matches inflation. It's a good store of money and value. And people always need a place to live and a place to rent, ideally.
Yeah.
But I never really thought of it in terms of ethics, though. I kind of like that point because landlords get shit on quite a bit. It's easy to be like, hey, screw you because you own so much real estate. I can't own real estate. I don't think that's true. I mean, if I came with that mindset, I wouldn't own any real estate myself, right? I don't think I came for anything special, to be honest. I just worked a W-2, spent less than I made, and saved money and bought real estate and let that compound over.
And you ask good questions. Like you ask good questions. Yeah. Honestly, bringing it all the way back to the beginning. At the fact that you talked to a loan officer and was like, hey, how does this work? Is it exactly where it starts? And you change your mindset of like debt being bad. Yeah,
exactly. And I've always been that way. And they taught us that in healthcare too. Just ask questions. If you don't know, it's okay to ask a question.
Yeah.
So I always ask people what do I need to know to get this property? I know nothing about a home. Yeah. They just explain to you. You should be learning from these people because they're in the business. If they're not teaching you, then you need to find someone else.
Yeah.
That's what I always kind of thought.
Perfect, dude. Well, no, thanks so much for everything like you've taught me. Thanks for putting yourself out there on the internet and just like talking about this stuff. Just end on whatever you want to end on, just for people out there.
Yeah, if you want to get started in real estate, it's just really about being consistent. You can't get rich quick from real estate. Quick is about 15 years, I will say. Yeah. So if you really want to go down real estate, you have to be consistent in learning. You have to be consistent in saving money. You have to be consistent in scaling a portfolio, and you just really have to be consistent even though you get like knocked down. Like I lost $100,000 on my mobile home park, but I knew I could take that hit.
Yeah. And
that's why I worked at W-2 the whole time, and still why I work at W-2, because I know, like, yes, I make $10,000 a month, but if I have to replace a roof, that's $40,000. I just lost 4 months of cash flow. If I just spent all my cash flow on like nice things, now I have to go into debt to replace the roof. That's why I try to keep a lot of cash on hand. So that's why it's really a long-term game. And then once you're ready to retire from everything, you just can sell a good chunk of it, pay off your other half, own a bunch of real estate free and clear. And now at this point, you can do whatever you want.
Yep.
You don't have to worry about anything. So that's just kind of the game. But as long as you know what you're getting yourself into and you're willing to grind for 15 years, you can be successful in real estate. I think anyone could.
Yeah. Guys, go subscribe to Steven's channel. Leave a comment below. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you on the next one.